Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome back to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and leap into running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, Dean Thompson, coming to you once again from the Upward Sports Studio. Well, do you know anything about the history of T-shirts? Well, you will after you listen to this week's podcast. And then I'm going to talk about the story of the woman at the well, but I'm going to relate it to us as runners, especially new runners or walkers. And joining me once again is Run for God founder, Mitchell Hollis.
So, Dean, the cow drama continues.
Uh-oh.
Have I told you about the cow drama
Yes,
that I've had at my house? So,
I didn't realize it happened again. I knew the one time.
It happened again the past few days, and I was actually out watering. It's been dry around here, and so I was out watering my plants because we just moved in March. So usually that first year, you got to keep everything watered. And I heard a hoof behind me, behind me. I turned around, there's 7 cows standing there looking at me in my front yard. And if you didn't listen to a previous podcast, I have a wildlife feeder on the back of my property down on a river that runs by our property, and cameras down there. And I started getting all these pictures of cows, and I don't have cows. And then they were a neighbor's, and he got them back then, but they're back. And so they flipped over my wildlife feeder, ate 55 gallons of corn out of it, and they're just wreaking havoc. And I don't know what to do. I chase them back down and I run them back across the river. And but years ago here, I planted clover in a lot of the fields around my house, and I guess they just love that clover.
Yeah.
But they were right, 10 yards from me last night. They snuck up on me. And, of course, Louie, my little weenie dog, takes off after him like he's a tiger or something. But so that's been my drama for the week, is trying to figure out how to get rid of these cows. Nice. And the owner, great guy. It's his fences go down, and so you really can't get upset with him.
It's just something happens with cattle.
But it is frustrating. If I wasn't here, I have a feeling they would have been eating my azaleas and chomping down on it. That's where I am going to probably get a little upset, is they start eating landscaping. That'd be bad. But anyway, how's your week been?
Maybe you've got it figured out. Well, I have a serious announcement to make.
Oh wow!
This is.
I'll put my coffee down.
Yeah, this is as big. If you listen to the podcast and have listened to the podcast a lot over the years, you're going to really appreciate this announcement because it's a big one. I got a new lawnmower.
No. You're taking our content away. I make fun of you all the time for your lawnmower.
I know.
So what did you get?
I got a Toro Zero Turn.
Really?
Yeah.
Moving up in the world.
Well, that's what we typically do, right?
So what's going to be your patience tester now?
I don't know. Well, there's plenty out there. There's plenty.
Next in line?
Yeah, next in line. I just was, yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
I know that's been a thorn in your flesh for many years now. So.
Yeah. Well, I still have to sell the old one. I haven't sold it yet, but I need to get rid of it. What I noticed is, though, that if I sold the engine by itself, I could probably get about as much for it as I can get for the entire lawnmower. That makes no sense to me whatsoever.
That's where the value of the lawnmower is the engine.
It's got brand new everything on it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get anything out of that.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's salvage now.
Yeah.
So are you going to sell it, or are you going to be one of those people that just hold on to it for just in case for 20 years?
Debbie asked me that. She says, is there any reason to hold on to it? And I'm like, no. The only reason you'd hold on to it is just in case the other one goes down, and I don't want, it's too big. It takes up too much space.
How great is a zero turn, though?
Well, until I get used to it, it's not great right now.
Yeah, you gotta get used to it. But once you do, man.
Yeah.
I use zero turn, And I used to have a tractor in bush hog.
Oh, what a big difference.
We live on some property, and I sold my tractor in bush hog, and I do everything with a zero turn now, and it used to take me about 3.5 hours to bush hog with a 6-foot bush hog our property, and I shaved a little over an hour off my time by doing it with zero turn.
I can see why, especially with a tractor.
Yeah.
I mean, turning those around.
Yeah, I mean, half your time on a tractor is turning and getting straightened back up. So, congratulations. I'm glad you got one.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to cutting the grass. I cut my grass with it once, and it didn't look good because.
And then we hit drought, and you don't need to mow now.
Well, that's true. Yeah, but I'm afraid to get close to anything. Because I borrowed a zero turn mower here back a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I destroyed some stuff. So I've got to be careful.
Yeah. Be careful with those ditches too. Yeah. Those things can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Well,
we did have a post of the week this week, and it comes from Rusty Painter. He says, "All right, everyone, it's confession time. I haven't run in over a month. Between worrying about my job, getting a new job, and some discomfort in my hip and knee, I've had zero motivation to get up and go. Well, last night, I told Ginger that I was going to run this morning. My alarm went off at 3:45, and I still had no motivation to get up, but I did anyway. I went out, and it was hard. My knee and hip still hurt a little when I ran. I was out of shape after going a month without exercise. I walked a lot, but I did it. Week 1, day 1 is done. This is my comeback tour. Next race on the schedule, Mayberry Half on November 9th. See y'all at the finish line." Congratulations to Rusty for getting back out there, right?
So you know how we have names for people, like we have Countdown Mary. Well, I've always called Rusty 2 Thumbs Up Rusty.
Yeah.
Because he always does the selfie with the 2 thumbs up. And you
could tell he was out of practice because he says at the end there, he says, "I forgot to take a picture."
Yeah.
Because he always takes that picture.
Sure. And the camera's always on the ground.
Yeah.
Props it up against something, I guess. And gives 2 thumbs up. So isn't it funny how we know people by these things?
Yeah. I think it's cool when somebody has a signature thing like that.
Sure.
So I don't feel like I have a signature thing like that.
Yeah, I don't think I do either.
The only thing I can think of is people comment all the time about what I say when I greet somebody, and somebody says, "How you did?" What do I say? I don't even remember what I said now.
Well, go out there and shine your light. That's kind of signature.
Yeah.
Mine's "Good job, Dean."
Yeah.
So we have some signatures.
Yeah, I guess
they're just not as cool as Rusty's.
Well, I hope his knee and hip feels better soon. What I've seen from a lot of people is a lot of people will take some time off, and that thing that was bothering them doesn't feel better when they start back, but then it kind of fades away quickly after that. So I hope that's what happens with him. This is the time of year where this is the time of year people start coming back to running, because running during the summer is the hardest thing in the world to do.
And man, it's so nice out there now.
Yeah,
it is. The weather is just getting right. I had a conversation I told you with a couple of people this morning about becoming a coach. Again, if you're thinking about it in January, send an email to customerservice@runforgod.com. I want to talk to you personally, and that's what I was doing this morning. And I was talking to a couple of people, Rebecca Wang and George Williams, kind of household names around here. And they both live up north, and they were talking about how it's chilly in the mornings now. And I'm like, I can't get here fast enough. Yeah. Because it does. When you get out and walk or run, it makes such a difference. It's like free speed.
Yep.
When the temperatures start dropping.
Yep. Yeah, I think I mentioned on here that I've been struggling, and it seems like every workout's a little worse.
Yeah.
Well, I did a workout yesterday, and it was better than the one before it. So I've broken my cycle. I'm ready to get back to it, and it may have something to do with the weather.
Yeah, probably does.
Yeah. Anyway, be like Rusty. If you're out there struggling, you haven't done anything, don't worry about what you've done for the past month and the fact you haven't run or whatever it is. Just go ahead and get out there and go do it.
And know, like Rusty, it's not going to be sunshine and roses.
Yeah.
On that first probably couple runs back to whatever you're doing. It's gonna stink, but embrace it. Yep. Just know that that's part of the process to get back, and you'll get through it.
That's right. Our trivia question from last week was a true-false question. And the true-false question was, taller runners make better runners. True or false? And some people may have looked at this and thought, I wonder if it's a trick question. But it wasn't.
Right.
The answer is false. I've heard so many times people talk about, well, of course, he's a good runner. Look at how long his legs are. Well, that has nothing to do with running. Long legs do not make you a better runner. And I think that Usain Bolt is the one that blew this whole thing apart. For years, all the best sprinters were probably within 3 or 4 inches of each other for the most part. All the best ones were all probably between 5'10" and 6 feet for the most part. And then all of a sudden Usain Bolt comes along. He's this big, tall guy, and he runs the world record. And everybody thinks, well, it must, well, look, he's got those long legs. But he ran the world record despite the fact he's that tall, not because
of,
yeah. But the reason why is because the taller you are, the longer the lever is, the more force you have to use to get that thing going. And so he has to use a lot. He has to be a lot stronger than a shorter person does.
Sure.
Now, of course, there's a point at where you get short enough where it's hard to make up the difference because your stride length's not long enough.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I kind of look at that when I looked at this question. You kind of compare it to automobiles and pistons. Like a diesel engine, it has really long pistons. A diesel engine is not going to be really fast or efficient, but they're incredibly strong. And a Lamborghini or something, they have a much shorter piston, but it runs at a much higher RPM. And somewhere in there is the sweet spot. And that's really what our legs are. They're really just pistons for our body.
That's a good way to put it.
That propel us forward. So, yeah, that's a good question.
I like that. I like that analogy. Well, doesn't matter if you're out there and you're worried about how tall or short you are. Don't worry about it. You've got the ability to do whatever you can do, and that's all it is. I've seen, and I remember Sebastian Coe. I used to love to watch Sebastian Coe run because Sebastian Coe was shorter than everybody else in the race. He was an 800-meter runner, which typically actually does favor taller runners, but he was a short guy, and he was a world record holder for years. And but I used to love to watch him run because if you watched him run, his stride rate was about the same as everybody else's. Somehow that little short guy got so much power out of every stride that his stride rate was up. So yeah, it doesn't matter whether you're tall, short, whatever, you can be a runner. Do you need something to keep you motivated and to keep fit both physically and spiritually? Upward Sports Run for God Run Club has just what you need to keep you on track for both. Check out runforgod.com and join us today for pennies a day. You won't regret it. All right, we're back. And as always ask you every week. Now, there's some people who have heard this over and over again, and you still haven't submitted your story, but it's time. It is time to submit your story. So you might want to get that in now, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen, okay? This is the golden opportunity for submitting your story, because here's what's going to happen. Come January, when we have all these classes going on, there's going to be thousands of stories, and we're going to be flooded with stories, and I'm just going to have to pick and choose. Right now, we're not picking and choosing. So right now is the time to submit,
if you submit your story today, it's getting put in the queue.
Yes. All right. Well, I saw 3 stories of people this week that died in a half marathon in this past week. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on. I don't ever remember seeing that ever in the past. Usually if somebody dies during or after a race, it's a really, really uncommon thing, and you never see, you see it once a year maybe. And this is 3, one in California, one in Minneapolis, one in Great Britain. And of course, the conspiracy part of me wonders what's going on. Is there something underlying all this that they're not telling us? Because there's so much nowadays that they don't share with us. And it doesn't seem to be heat related. The person in California was a little worried about the heat, but the heat's not that bad out there where he was. And the others had no reason. I mean, Minneapolis, I don't even know if it ever gets hot enough there to worry about the heat, really. But something weird is going on, I guess. I don't know. We had a local kid years ago, John Bruner, who, he was yards from the finish line, and he collapsed and died. And they found out later that he had a heart condition.
Yeah.
And they didn't know that he had it. And so that's why it's so important for us to get these checkups and make sure that we don't have underlying issues. And I wonder if in each of these three cases, it's just coincidence they all happen at the same time. But
maybe, we're not going to go too far down this road, but I've been watching some, Holly and I, we cannot find a show nowadays that doesn't have agendas and, things that we shouldn't be watching. So we've started watching documentaries. And even some of those nowadays, it's like, okay, this is ridiculous. But I've listened to several podcasts lately and watched several documentaries lately that just kind of raised some red flags to me that I've kind of known, and you've heard whispers of through the years that, this could be out there, but it could be being not talked about for whatever reason. But the idea of medications nowadays that it's just true that there are so many chronic medications nowadays that just weren't around. Now, the argument could be some of those are good, and I'm sure some of them are, but there's so many medications out there now that are just honestly probably being taken by people that shouldn't be taking them.
That's true.
And I'm gonna. I mean, there's, and it's the ones that you see the commercials for, and it's for this thing, but you can also lose weight.
Yeah.
And these podcasts I'm listening to, and I just encourage you to go do your research on this, because I'm not planting a flag on either side, but the flags are being raised that, hey, these drugs are dangerous if you're not taking them for the right reasons. And even if you are taking them for the right reasons, there's a reason that there's only 2 countries in the world where you can advertise pharmaceuticals on TV.
It's true.
We're one of those. And I think New Zealand's the other one. Why is that? I don't know. Is that the reason for these 3? I don't know.
We
probably
don't know.
Not. Yeah. But
it's a good point.
We need to be educated, and that's an area that we don't get at because we just take things at face value.
Yeah.
When and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of just like you said, but sometimes you got to follow the money.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to stop right there and say, everybody, do some independent research on the pharmaceuticals that you're taking.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot of evidence out there that they're causing problems that maybe they're causing more harm than good.
Yeah.
They may be fixing one thing and causing 3 other things. So
it's true.
I don't know. I've listened to some podcasts that it kind of makes you sit back and go,
Yeah.
So,
well, one of the reasons I bring this up is for this reason. Don't be paralyzed by this.
No.
I don't want anybody to think, oh my gosh, 3 people, now all of a sudden there's some kind of problem and everybody's going to die. And these are very, very unusual things. And so I know that sometimes something happens out in the world and the news gets on it and we get so worried about those things. But don't let this rattle you at all. Now, like to your point, check on those medications. I think that is an important thing to do, but don't let that slow you down at all.
And I'm not saying if you're on medication, stop taking your medications. That is not what I'm saying. No. I'm just saying I'm a curious person.
Yeah.
I think you are too.
Yeah.
And this is an area where we should be curious.
Yeah. I've seen some of those same things you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, T-shirts, we all wear them. Where did they come from? And what message are you trying to pass along with your T-shirts?
So, Dean, when I pulled this up, your notes, I was like, who in the world wrote a story about T-shirts? And then I saw the name and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Good old Jerry Snider.
Yeah.
He says this. He says, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. That comes from Will Rogers. I'm doing laundry today, and I would like to show you some of my T-shirts and explain the message I want the world to see when I wear them. T-shirts got their start in the 1800s as part of work outfits and later military uniforms. The T-shirt as we know it today, with pictures and phrases, started to catch on in the 1940s. That brings us to shirt number 1. Green with a picture of a famous hobo clown, Emmett Kelly. I'm hoping that when you see this character and how pitifully sad he looks, whatever your troubles are, in a strange way, you'll start to feel better. Mr. Kelly said, "By laughing at me, the audience really laughs at themselves, and realizing they have done this gives them sort of a spiritual second wind for going back into the battles of life." Now let's pull another T-shirt out of the dryer. This one has Mickey Mouse on the front. I'm always inspired by the word of Mickey's creator, Walt Disney, who said, "If you can dream it, you can do it." It's kind of fun to do the impossible. So my question for you is, what kind of dreams do you have for your life? History books are full of people who have done what others have said was impossible. I encourage you to add your name to this list. Here's a shirt with the name Rocky Marciano. He was the only heavyweight boxing champion to retire from the sport undefeated, 49-0. I'm not encouraging you to become a prize fighter. What I'm hoping you'll do is develop the one trait more than any other that made Rocky champion: tenacity. It means not giving up. A sports writer once said of Rocky, "A building could fall on him and he would still be swinging at you." Pursue your dreams with that kind of passion. Next, we have a shirt with the words that this shirt saves lives next to a logo of St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. They opened their doors in 1962. The place treats children from all over the world who are fighting cancer. And here's the good news. They do it free of charge. That's right. No patient being treated at St. Jude ever gets a bill. The vision for this project came from entertainer Danny Thomas, who said, "No child should die in the dawn of life." I'm guessing you may have a shirt just like the next one. It says Run for God Run Club, and it's sure to be a conversation starter. Wearing this shirt is your chance to make new friends and tell them all the benefits the club offers, and most important, you can tell them about Jesus. It could be the game changer they've been searching for. We have time for one more shirt. This one says Hollywood across the front. I'm a big fan of the Muppets, especially Fozzie Bear. Their creator, Jim Henson, said, "Life is a movie. Write your own ending." So, friends, what you got here doesn't have to keep you here. Come up with a plan. Make sure you're the one holding the pen, and now go to work and make your dreams come true.
His stories always just make you smile.
Yeah, they do. They do. T-shirt. Yeah, I never really thought about T-shirts. I mean, T-shirts are so ubiquitous today that you don't really think about a time when there were no T-shirts.
Yeah.
But everybody's got a billboard on them these days, don't they?
Sure. Well, I mean, we always say Run for God. It all started with a T-shirt. It all started with a single T-shirt.
That's right.
And so there's power in what you wear on that billboard on your chest.
For sure. For sure. Well, there must be power for it, for labeling it, because nowadays everything's labeled. They're labeling stadiums now, right? And have been for a while. But I mean, I remember a time when it was, the Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. It wasn't sponsored by anybody. It was just and now every stadium, there is a company that pays millions and millions of dollars to put their name on a stadium.
Sure.
It's amazing that it's hard to believe that it's worth that much money to put your name on something. But they wouldn't do it if it wasn't, I guess. It's
either worth it or they're just making that much money and need to spend some of it.
Maybe too.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you have to talk about things that make you go, you got to wonder why the biggest buildings and skylines are many of the biggest stadiums in America are banks or credit card companies.
Yeah, that is true.
And yeah, I mean,
I've thought a lot about you ever see old advertising, from the 40s or 50s?
Some of them are hilarious.
They're hilarious, but they're so straightforward.
Yeah.
Right? Most
of them you can't get away with nowadays.
Well,
some of the old ones.
That's true. That's true. I hadn't thought about those. But a lot of them are like, here's some soap. Yeah. It'll make you cleaner than anybody else's soap. Right. That's the message.
Yeah.
It's what it does, right? And nowadays, every message from every ad is, this is going to make you feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. It's going to change your life. There's always some kind of a message attached to it that's way more than what the product does. Eat this cereal and you'll be able to jump over tall buildings. Yeah. It's the craziest thing.
A lot of hyperbole in advertising today, which is why I like what we do every Friday. Every Friday on our social platforms, we have a simple message. It's not run for God. It's not all other things. It's God loves you. It's the greatest ad campaign in the history of the world.
Yeah.
It's simple. It understands, and it often provokes a response, which is what great marketing does, right?
That's true.
But God loves you. Probably I don't know. We use it every Friday. We don't change it. We even have the same quote every week that's from Billy Graham. I don't know how we got on advertising. Oh, the T-shirts.
Yeah, the T-shirts. T-shirts now are billboards. And, I like funny T-shirts. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, there are some that are inappropriate funny, but there's a lot of interesting messages on T-shirts.
I've got one. Of course, 99.9% of the time, I'm wearing a Run for God or Upward Running T-shirt. But there's one that my mother-in-law bought me, and I don't know whether that I didn't know what to think when she bought it because of what it says, but I love what it says. It says, I'm a smoker. I like smoking meats, and it says "Body by Brisket," and it's way too big for me, so I don't really know what she was saying when she bought me that. But I love the T-shirt. So anytime, like on a weekend, I'm smoking something, I'll wear that T-shirt.
They probably didn't make that T-shirt with that message. They probably didn't make that T-shirt in a smaller size.
Well, I just made the comment yesterday. I said, "Beware of a skinny barbecue guy."
It's true,
because it's probably not good at it.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but I'm a barbecue guy, and I'm pretty lean. So,
yeah. What does that say?
I don't know, Dean.
I think you do a great job smoking.
Well,
so yeah. So I can't say that applies.
Yeah.
But I can see why people say it.
Yeah.
Colossians 3:12 says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience."
I love that Jerry uses this verse because we just got done saying that T-shirts these days are a billboard. Well, if we're a child of God, we should be a billboard. I mean, it's almost like if we weren't wearing a shirt at all, or we were wearing a plain white shirt, when people see our lives, they should see these things, is what this verse is saying. We're preaching the gospel without ever saying a word, which is, I was going to say Francis of Assisi, but I don't think that's actually true. But people should see these things in us on the billboard of our chest without us saying anything.
Yeah.
Our actions speak louder than our words.
Yeah, which kind of a good segue to what I was going to say about this verse goes on and it says several other things in here. And then it wraps up with, "And over all these virtues, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity." Mm-hmm. That last verse just kind of wraps everything up. Mm-hmm. And it struck me that the whole idea of love is a lot like running. It's simple. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love is simple. Sure. It just is, right? But it's not that easy to do. Mm-hmm. And you have to do in order to be, right? Sure. You can't be a runner without doing.
Right.
And you can't say you love without doing. Mm-hmm. And I just thought I never put those two together quite like that, but it's important how we act. Ephesians 6:17 says, "Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God." These are the verses everybody knows, right? In Ephesians 6, where we talk about
the armor of God.
The armor of God. It says, We do not wrestle with flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, world rulers of darkness, and against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. And it talks about putting on the full armor of God to fight against them. And this helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, they're part of that preparation. And again, relating that back to running, it's like the idea of putting on the armor of God to protect against all the things the world is going to throw at us is a lot like thinking about running from a running shoe standpoint. Would you go out and run barefoot every day? Well, no. Why wouldn't you? Well, because it wouldn't protect you and you'd wind up getting hurt. If you go out on a muddy place and you're running a race, you wear spikes because it helps you. If you're going out on a trail, you might wear trail shoes because it helps you. And that's what we're doing with the full armor of God is we're protecting ourselves from those roots and rocks because they're coming. And we know they're coming. Just like when I go run on a trail, I know there's going to be those things and I'm going to have to avoid them. And the best way to do that is to have the protection to avoid them. And it's that way with our spiritual life, right?
Well, I love that you pointed out the rest of that verse, that we do not wrestle with flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, world rulers of darkness, and against spiritual hosts of wickedness. Because I think, we're so prone nowadays to see it as the person. And I've talked on here before that I think the older I get, the more I think I can see beyond that, even though it's very hard when somebody is belligerent and whatever. But I think the older I get, the more I learn to see what's behind that. There is always something behind that. And it's a lot of times it's not actually the person who is coming after you or attacking what we stand for. We have to understand that there is a extremely powerful force, the ruler of darkness, that is behind that many times. And if we can separate those two things, the person from the power that's driving that person, then we can. It's only when you can do that you can love that person who might be attacking you.
That's true.
But when you combine those two things, that's almost like loving the devil. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But we have to be able to extrapolate the person from the power that's driving them, and whatever the situation is, to be able to do what you said, which is simple, is to love.
Yeah.
But we can't love the devil. We can't. And that's most always what's driving these circumstances.
Yeah. That's good. Matthew 12:37 says, "The words you say will either acquit you or condemn you." Oh, those words will hit hard, won't they? I recently had a situation where I said some words that I wish I could take back, which, I just do that every once in a while. And it goes back to what you're talking about. The devil doesn't just infiltrate people's minds who are non-Christians. He gets into our minds too. And, it was one of those things I meant for something to be funny. And in my mind, it was.
Done that before.
Yeah. And
falls flat.
In my mind, it was funny, and I didn't mean anything about the way it was taken. I didn't mean it that way, but it came out that way.
Sure.
And I see why it was taken that way, because in context, I understand it. Man, to read that verse after that was, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
A quote comes to mind when I read that verse. It's better to stay quiet and people think you're a fool than to open your mouth and prove them right. And I need to. I'm getting better. I think you're getting better.
I am better.
But the tendency there is to sometime your acquittal can be silence.
Yeah.
And your condemnation can be opening your mouth.
Well, the good news is this verse is really meant for non-believers. Because Jesus made it possible for those words to not condemn me, right? Because I can go to him and say, God, I am so sorry. And of course, I went back to that person that was offended and I said, I am so sorry. And I guess all of this kind of just goes back to our fruit, right? if we're planted in our faith, then we're going to produce good fruit. And I need to be better planted, so that I don't allow. I need to put on my armor a little bit snugger or whatever to stop those kinds of things from happening. Those things happen, and we got to be ready for them and fight against them before they happen.
Because let's be honest, what combats the devil? It's not Dean. It's not Mitchell.
That's right.
I mean, we just get in the way of that. It's God. That is the only thing that can combat the devil. And too many times we try to take matters in our own hands, and it goes off the rails.
Yeah, it does. Question: has your Run for God t-shirt created any meaningful conversations?
When I read this, you know what my mind went to? And I don't know why it immediately went there. And maybe it's that we need to talk about it. My mind immediately went to the time that Lane and I were in Seattle, Washington for a race. And I was downtown in the, what's that, Pikes Market?
Yeah.
Down on the water. And it's the only time that I've ever, I wouldn't say fearful is the right word. It's the only time that I've ever been on guard, because a guy, and I think he was high or drunk or something, but he saw me coming. He saw my t-shirt, and he came and he started yelling at me probably 30 yards from me and did it all the way till he got to me. He was saying, "Run for God. What the blank is that supposed to mean?" And just cussing and yelling. And it's the only time that I've ever okay, Lane, we're going to keep walking. Lane was probably 13 at the time. And I don't know why that story came to mind when I read this question, because there's so many good confrontations that I've had with people in conversations. But that one is the one that came to mind, is the time that I was on edge because of my shirt.
Well, and you don't know that today that same guy doesn't have a relationship with Christ because of that day.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the dominoes that had to fall in place for him to come to knowledge of Christ. So you just don't know. And in the moment, it's super uncomfortable, isn't it?
Oh man, that was the most uncomfortable I've ever felt. Because I thought the guy he could have I thought there's a good chance he's actually going to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it had been just you, it wouldn't have been nearly as bad as it was knowing Lane was right there with you.
Yeah. I mean, there's that, but it was still unnerving. I mean, because what I saw, talking about evil, what I saw was evil. Yeah. I mean, that's a nerve-wracking thing to look at evil in the eye like that, because it was eye contact. He wanted me to know what he thought. And,
wow.
But maybe that's right. Maybe that was a trigger. Yeah. We'll never know.
That's right. I don't know that I've ever had a negative. I had the one guy I've talked about before, in a class, coaching class that said something about my shirt. Other than that, I don't know that I've had any real negative things. But the story that came to mind for me, and I don't remember all the details of the story with Ben. And, they were helping out at a race. Oh, yeah. And somebody had some kind of a problem during the race, and they remembered the T-shirt.
Sure.
I remember that. That was a great story about the T-shirt. But, yeah, you wear a Run for God T-shirt, you're going to have conversations. I mean, there's no question. I've had hundreds of conversations. It doesn't matter
where you're at either.
Nope. It's pretty cool. Question 2. What was the most important message you read on a T-shirt? For me, there's no question that Run for God was the most important message I've ever read on a T-shirt, because it changed my life. I mean, I went from, doing one job to doing something that I love, and something completely different. If I'd never read that shirt, that never would have happened. Right? Sure. So, yeah, I mean, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, and again, we're going to go back to the well here. Run for God is becoming Upward Running, but the Run for God T-shirt is not going anywhere. So the Run for God T-shirt will always be there. But Upward Running, I have had comments about it as well now. And so, because it means something a little different. People, you know what I think it is? And I think it's great that we did it this way. And I'm sitting here staring at your shirt. Sticky stayed.
Yeah.
Sticky has a cross on his chest. And upward running, run for God, I always say when in my testimony that, you know, people are drawn to this goofy looking shirt. Well, the run for God is not what's goofy. It's the goofy looking stick man on it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I've had comments already about my upward running shirt as well. So
I hadn't thought about that. That Sticky's got the cross and that kind of makes it a little more clear.
This is a funny story. I don't think I've shared this on here. I'll take a right turn here for just a second. I was, we were wondering, how this transition of the name and everything was going to go. Well, I was in a woodworking store in Chattanooga. Landon likes to do woodworking and stuff. So, and I was behind the counter with the guy that was helping me find something. We were looking on the computer, and another girl that works there was standing off to the side, and I saw her staring at me, and it was one of those things like, what is she staring at? And then I saw her pick up her phone, because I could tell she was looking at my shirt. I had an upward running shirt on, and then she picked up her phone and she was searching for something on her phone. But then I saw as she held her phone up, I could see a Run for God decal on the back of her phone. Have you heard this story?
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Well, I saw a Run for God decal on the back of her phone, and she was searching, and it's like it just hit me what it was. I said, it's the same thing. She recognized Sticky.
Yeah.
And she was a runner for the Patriots, one of the cross country teams in town. And she has done Run for God races, but she was wondering, she had no idea. Or no, I say she didn't have no idea. She had done Upward Sports before. And she was trying to figure out what's going on here. I see Sticky that I recognize, and I see Upward Sports that I recognize. And she had never seen them put together. So that was a great confirmation to me that people are tying these two things together in the right way. So I can't believe I've never told you that story.
That's a cool story, man. Of course, one of my favorite things that ever on a T-shirt was the whole "Who do you say that I am?" thing on the back of the T-shirts. Yeah. I just think it's such a powerful question, and just wearing it on the back of your T-shirt where you're not paying any attention to it, but people are seeing it. And that's actually going on the back of all the student T-shirts. You haven't even seen the design, but they kind of redesigned that statement from Matthew 16:15. Yeah.
But it's going on the back of all the student T-shirts for the 5K Challenge church model. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Last question. How do you respond to someone wearing a less than tasteful T-shirt? I don't know why he left that question till last.
I don't know why he has to ask about people wearing Tennessee Volunteers T-shirts like that, or Georgia Tech. I mean, it is distasteful. But,
Well, I saw a kid the other day. I saw there was a little kid in a University of Georgia shirt, and so I called 911 and reported him for child abuse.
Oh, me.
No, I think this depends on
Is Georgia Tech undefeated so far?
No.
Oh, I didn't think so.
No.
Okay, never mind.
No. I think this depends on the setting, right? Yeah. This whole question, because, if I see somebody in Walmart that I don't know and I'm by myself, I'm not going to call somebody out for their shirt. Now, I'm going to wonder about that person. I may even pray for that person because it's like, I feel so bad for them that they think that's an appropriate thing to wear. But that's about it. Now, if I'm at an event and there are kids around, or I remember there were a number of times when I was coaching and I had these college girls and somebody would, this is similar, somebody using foul language. And I would call them out. It's like, look, can we keep that down? I try to do it in a nice way. But, it just depends on who's around as far as. So
let's flip the script. What do you do when you see somebody wearing a Run for God T-shirt or a Jesus Fish T-shirt and they're acting a way that they shouldn't be? What do you do there?
Yeah, that's an even harder one, isn't it?
I'll tell you the reason I bring that up is, and this guy's a friend, and he would never listen to this podcast. But I'm not going to say a name. He was a friend of mine through the triathlon world. His son competed with Lane. This guy was an incredibly nice guy. I mean, I call him a friend. but this guy cusses like a sailor. I mean, it's just he's one of those people you can tell he just grew up talking that way, and it's just his vocabulary. He can say the most horrible 4-letter words, but it's just part of conversation. He doesn't mean anything like downing somebody or something like that. And I'll never forget, you may remember this story. He said, Mitchell, when are you going to get me one of them blankety blank Run for God shirts? And I was like, and I never brought him one.
Yeah.
I mean, he asked me more than one time, and it was filled with 4-letter cuss words while he was asking me the question. And like I said, incredibly nice guy, needed Jesus terribly bad. But that's another one. You know, it's you got both sides. We like to point fingers at the person wearing the horrible T-shirt, but how many people are pointing fingers at you when you're wearing a Run for God T-shirt? That'll convict you.
That will, big time. Yeah. You know what I think is interesting about this question is that I think we should be thankful that people label themselves. If somebody's wearing an inappropriate shirt, you know that guy needs a prayer, right? I mean, I think that that's an interesting thing that we can tell a little bit about people. Now, you can't tell everything about people because my son, for example, he loves heavy metal music. I mean, head banging, that gravelly screaming. I can't stand the music he likes, but I know him, and he also has, his hair's long as well. He just looks like a heavy metal guy, and he is the calmest, nicest. He's just a great guy, and you would never know that by seeing the T-shirt that he might wear that says "Avenged Sevenfold," and and
I don't even know what that means.
Listen to the music he listens to. That's one of those heavy metal bands, and now he doesn't like to listen to anybody who's the satanic type.
Sure.
He doesn't like to listen to that stuff, but you don't know that when you're listening because you can't understand a word they're saying.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful because I can tell you, I mean, I know he's my son, but I've never heard anybody say anything. The kid he's a great man.
Sure.
And as respectful of other people as anybody you'll find anywhere.
Yeah.
But he doesn't look like it. So we got to be really careful about how we look at people as it relates to these T-shirts, and be careful not to judge them.
Upward Sports equips churches to run self-sustaining sports ministries in their communities. Whether you're a sports fanatic or on staff at a church, Upward Sports will give you all the tools you need to run a first-class sports ministry that allows you to reach families in your community. Upward Sports offers basketball, soccer, flag football, cheerleading, volleyball, baseball, and softball through league and camp offerings. At Upward Sports, we want to help your church make a difference and give you increased opportunities to share the gospel. Learn more today at upward.org. That's upward.org.
All right, we're back, and we've got this from the BBC. This is an interesting, and this kind of goes back to something we were talking about a little while ago. At the heart of sprinting is a simple equation. Running speed is equal to step length multiplied by step frequency. You either take long steps or you take faster steps. That's the most basic thing you can do, says Sam Gleadhill, who is a biomechanical and strength and conditioning researcher at the University of South Australia. The caveat to that, though, is that if you improve one of those variables, you don't want to decrease the other. Attempting to increase the number of steps you take can result in shorter strides and vice versa. Whether you rely more on step length or frequency is individual. Usain Bolt finds his speed primarily through step length and ground reaction force, which is the force produced when striking the ground, which increases stride length. In his record-setting time of 9.58 seconds, Bolt's longest stride stretched to 2.872 meters, which is 9.5 feet. Yeah. Evidence is not fully conclusive, but research suggests female sprint speed is more influenced by step frequency and male sprint speed by step length. This may be in part due to the positive impacts of leg length on stride length. Then it says, step frequency, on the other hand, is determined by motor neuron excitability, inter and intramuscular coordination, and neural fatigue. Athletes reliant on step frequency need high neural activity just before sprinting to achieve a quicker leg turnover. There is some question, however, as to how much step frequency can be improved. In my point of view, you have to depend more on improving the step length, says Vasilos.
Have fun with that one.
Panatsakopoulos, an assistant professor of biomechanics at Aristotle University in Thessaloniki, France. The step frequency is something that after you mature does not change. Sprint performance is influenced by both genetic and environmental factors. But genetics may play a larger role in step frequency because it is related to motor neuron excitability. And then it follows with this. People who tend naturally to walk fast may be better sprinters too. Is that interesting?
I'm a fast walker. I just naturally am.
Yeah.
But I'm not a sprinter.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I've never.
My whole family complains that when we go somewhere, I walk way too fast. Yeah.
Debbie walks too fast for me sometimes. Usually it's right after a marathon or something like that. That's because she's used to keeping up with me at other times. Well, this is, it talks about the power generated by Usain Bolt. This is something that the cycling community knows really well. Right?
And the swimming community. Stroke rate and stroke length.
Yes, but I'm talking about power. It's talking about Usain Bolt, and the amount of power that he's able to drive into the ground is something that there are some things coming out, power meter type things for runners, but the cyclists have been doing that for years.
Oh yeah,
power meters, which is how much force is applied to the pedals.
Sure.
And it's a lot like these sprinters applying force to the ground, and all of this is all about sprinters, but all of this applies to distance runners too. It's all about stride length and stride frequency and how
it's really
those two
math
go together.
When you come down to it.
It really is. It really is. And there are those who run really well with a longer stride and a lower frequency, and vice versa. Have you ever watched Stewie McSwain? He's a professional runner for Australia, and he sticks out of everybody else in the race every single time because his stride length is so much shorter than everybody else's. So his stride rate has to be faster. And it looks odd when you see it, when everybody else is close to the same. But then you get a guy like the American guy that just won the 1500. Jared Naguse.
Oh no, yeah.
Jared Naguse has this long loping stride, and they're completely opposite. But
it's kind of like watching a Great Dane and a Weenie Dog run side by side.
It is, except the problem the thing is that the Great Dane's going to be faster than the Weenie Dog.
Sure,
right? I say that. I think that's the case.
Yeah. Louie's not fast,
but
thinks
anyway,
he is.
Yeah, it's all interesting. I thought I would share. Well, it's a time for Dean's Thoughts, and that's a time when I share something I've written about the intersection between running and faith. I was thinking about Jesus and the Samaritan woman at the well, and I thought I would share those thoughts as they relate to running. This is called Reminders. In the 4th chapter of John, Jesus has a conversation with a Samaritan woman at a well. If you have looked into the context of the story, then you know that his conversation was very unusual. It was inappropriate for him to talk with any woman, let alone one as off the rails as this lady was. We know that she was at the well to draw water at an unusual time of day to avoid running into people she did not want to talk with. And we know that Jesus shared with her until she finally got the idea that he was the long-awaited Messiah. If you have spent more than a few weeks near a church, you have heard the story. There are a couple of interesting things about this story that relates to our running or fitness journey. First, look at the fact that she leaves her water jar at the well. One thing I've noticed about a lot of newer runners is that they don't like to consider themselves runners. Consequently, many new runners will keep one foot in the sedentary world while they take a step into the fitter world. I think there are two reasons for that. The first reason is simple. They don't feel worthy to call themselves runners because they still have so much to learn about the sport, and they feel inadequate to be compared to the veteran who has been doing it for many years. But the second reason is potentially much more damaging. Many people want to have the sedentary life to go back to if, and to them, when they fail. If you leave yourself the much easier option, you're almost certainly going to go back there. I've seen it many times. As long as you keep your mind open to going back to an easier path, as soon as things get tough, you'll take that path. Don't leave yourself the option. Like the woman at the well left her water jug behind, leave your old life behind. You don't need it anymore. Secondly, let's take a look at the fact that she now feels the need to go and tell everyone. She's excited about this newfound Savior, and she's going to make sure everyone knows about it, even saying, "Come and see the man who knows all about me." Her life was changed in an instant because she now understood something she had not understood just a few minutes prior. When you start a new fitness journey, you know instinctively that it's a good thing that you're doing. But inevitably, many people will go back to the things that are not good for them because they lose sight of the reason for starting in the first place. So let's ask two questions about the woman at the well. First, do you think she lost the fervor for her newfound reason for hope? I'd say no. Second, why did she never lose sight of the reason for her hope? I'm pretty sure the answer is that she kept going back to the reason. She replayed that encounter with Jesus over and over in her head. When things got tough, she probably heard his words in her head, don't you think? So what are you doing when things get tough in your fitness journey? Are you looking at the ease of Netflix? Or are you going back to the reason you started in the first place? You were excited enough at one point to jump off and start the journey. Look back to that moment and relive it, especially when things get tough. Why wouldn't you be just as determined now? When we become runners or walkers, we are changed. Sure, things will get tough. Maybe it's a scheduling thing, or maybe a nagging injury, or maybe a simple apathy. When you struggle, realize that you left the water jug at the well because you found a reason to be the changed person you are. The reason you started is still a good reason today.
Such a good story, Dean. And I actually just had a conversation that's exactly like this almost. I was talking to some potential coaches, and one of the big changes that we have coming for the new church model is we are asking when you sign up to become a participant at your local church that you also become a Run Club member. So there is a cost there. And I had the question just an hour or so ago, could there be an offering where they get 30 days for free to see if they like it? And I kind of pushed back because we've discussed this a lot over the past. It is the woman at the well scenario. Yeah. And the conclusion that we've come to, because we've offered free races before. Yeah. And we'll have 500 people sign up and 200 will show up. Mm-hmm. Well, if you charge $35, 95% of the people are showing up. I said, it doesn't bother me to ask somebody. Now, obviously, we have scholarships, and we're never going to turn somebody away because they can't afford it. But it doesn't bother me to ask somebody to pay $9.97. It's not about the $9.97. It's the commitment. It's leaving the jar at the well. That's right. You're invested in this. And I asked the person, I said, do you fully believe that somebody coming in who has been sedentary for the past 10 years, do you fully believe that this program will change their life? And she said, yes. And I said, that's all you need. Yeah. It doesn't bother me to ask somebody to leave that jar at the well, as you would put it.
It's a
great story, Dean.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, too, and a good way to bring it all back around. There's something that struck me about this story this time is that you got this Samaritan woman, right? And she knows about the coming Messiah. Mm-hmm. It has a pretty good intimate knowledge. It's clear because as soon as he makes it clear that's who he is, she realizes it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it made me think about today's world and how we're watching two separate movies these days, right? You got one half of the country that tunes into one set of facts on the news and another set that turn into another set of facts. And we don't have, I think this is the first time in history that we don't have. Now, we've always had, propaganda and countries that do certain things and cultures that are different from one to another. But in this case, in our own country, where our culture should be the same and where we should all be focused in the same direction, we don't have the same feelings about things because we're not getting the same set of facts. And that's really, really bad for us, I think.
Well, you say this is the first time, but it's been going on a long time. And it's funny, I just had this conversation with Lane. He said, do you remember, he had just heard about people like Walter Cronkite. He said, do you remember back when they used to just report the news? I said, yes, I remember that. Lane's 21 years old. He's never experienced that.
Yeah.
He said that he heard in one of his classes or something that there once were people who simply, not reported, told the news.
Yeah.
And he was like fascinated by that. And I said, that is a sad state of where we're at because he's 21 years old and he's never seen that.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. It's a while. It's certainly, but it's been an evolution.
Sure.
And, one of the things that I've gone back and forth with several people over the past decade or so is just the concept of truth. The concept of truth is really, really important. Mm-hmm. And it should be important to all of us, especially Christians. Mm-hmm. And I hate to say this, and I don't mean this ill towards anybody who's in marketing, but I blame marketing. Mm-hmm. I blame for the slippery slope that we've slid down. Because we want to sensationalize everything. Mm-hmm. And nobody tunes into the news. People have tried. Over the past decade, people have tried to create a news source that was neutral and just told the news. And nobody tunes in. Nobody wants to see it. Mm-hmm. They want to see the sensational news, right? And anyway, I was thinking, I was watching a special this week, the James Webb Space Telescope. Mm-hmm. That is an amazing thing. Golly, and the way that it was deployed and everything about that thing is absolutely incredible. But as I was listening to this and them talk about the James Webb Space Telescope, they were talking about how the universe is 13.8 billion years old, and they were talking about evolution as if it's a fact, and it's not. Mm-hmm. It's not a fact. It's that's what they think, and I'm okay with them saying this is what we believe. Right. But it also, it kind of pointed fingers back to me because I thought, well, how do I present what I believe? Mm-hmm. Do I present it as fact or do I present it as I believe this? Mm-hmm. And I don't know, truth's important.
Sure.
And, 100% believe that some of these things are wrong, but I don't know. I don't know why that all of that kind of came down. And I started thinking about all that as it relates to this. Anyway, that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down for a long time. But the bottom line is we don't, like you said, we don't need to leave that door open to go back to where we came from. Once we start down a road, there's no reason not to go down the same road. I'll tell you, we were watching Dave Ramsey last night, the second step, the baby step, the debt snowball thing. And he says, when you're going to do this is when you get sick and tired.
I had it moment.
Yep. When you can get to that point, and that's where we got to get to in our fitness journey. We got to get to that point where we're sick and tired of being out of shape. We're sick and tired of walking upstairs and breathing hard. We're sick and tired of feeling bad all the time. We're sick and tired of not sleeping well. Mm-hmm. When we get sick and tired of those things, then we can change. The thing is we have to remember that, right? We can't be sick and tired of it today, and then after we get ourselves into some reasonable shape and we're feeling better, forget what that felt like.
Sure.
So don't forget that, right? Have you always wanted to read through the entire Bible but never found the time to do it? Well, let me do it for you. Sign up for the self-paced Bible in a Year Challenge and start listening today. Every day, I read a few chapters of the Bible and give you running or walking tips and encouraging quotes. You must be a Run Club member for access to this exciting challenge. So, if you're not a member, sign up today and get started. If you are a member, what are you waiting for? Every week, I share a reason why running and or walking is so awesome. How about this? It's more natural than any other sport. I mean, it's just not natural to try to hit a ball with a bat, right? It's not natural to try to tackle somebody. It's not natural to dribble a ball or kick a ball. It is natural to just run. So running, walking, totally natural. Mm-hmm. So that's just one more reason. Well, they had the Fifth Avenue Mile last week. Do you know about the Fifth Avenue Mile?
Is that New York City?
Yeah, it's a New York City thing. It's been around since I was in high school.
It's a long straight 1 mile.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Well, Josh Kerr broke a 43-year-old record in it this week. He ran 3:44. Josh Kerr is a Scottish guy. He's Great Britain. Ran 3:44 to win by a few seconds. I mean, it wasn't close. The guys behind him were a fair distance behind him. Sidney Marie was the old record holder. He was a guy that was around at a time when it was the golden age of milers then. So, but pretty cool. But they also had Carissa Schweitzer also tied the record for women, which is 4:14. Sounds really fast. Turns out they had a little bit of a tailwind in this particular race. It is slightly downhill, so I don't know if that has anything to do with.
Is there big prize money for that?
Yeah,
I would think there is to be getting those kind of people there.
It's a big race. Matter of fact, a friend of mine went up there and ran the Masters race.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't hear how he did, but he ran it. So I didn't realize they had. I guess I should have assumed they have several races up there, but maybe one day I'll get up there and run it. But before that, they had a rematch with these top 1,500 meter guys. Remember the Olympics and how great that race was? Well, all those guys all in the same race again, right? And so the pre-race talk was, again, the same thing. It was, who's going to win? Is it going to be Josh Kerr or Ingebrigtsen? Which one's going to win? Because it was going to be a rabbited race, and so surely one of those two were going to win. And then, of course, they thought Cole Hocker couldn't keep up because he just wasn't going to be good in a rabbited race like that. So you know who won? Jared Nagoose. Nobody saw that coming. So that was kind of cool to see Jared win a big race. So, and we got the Diamond League final coming up. So those guys will all race again. We'll see if he can do it again. My gut tells me that Ingebrigtsen's going to figure out how to beat those guys.
Really?
I don't know why in the Diamond League final. That's I'm calling that right now. Ingebrigtsen wins. I don't know why, but I just feel like that's what's going to happen. So we'll see. Well, how about a trivia question for this week? Last week was a true-false question. This week is going to be like a discussion/history kind of question. How about this? Make your case for which president of the United States would have had the fastest 5K time. Tell me who you think would be the fastest and why. There's no right or wrong answer, but I'm going to award, I'm going to wait until Friday, and then I'm going to award the best answer. So there's whoever you answer is not necessarily right or wrong.
I have one in my head, and it's probably not one anybody would pick.
Yeah, well, so we'll award it to the best answer. So you
got to articulate why you think what you think.
That's right. That's right. And send that to dean@runforgod.com. You do have to be a member of Run Club to win, but jump on that. I'm really interested to hear what the answers are going to be for that. So
okay, so before we sign off, again, we are, at the time of this recording, it's September the 12th. The date that I am trying to get everybody to join us with starting a 5K challenge in your community is January the 13th. We will start onboarding sometime in November, but I want to talk to you now. If you're even thinking about it, send an email to our customer service at runforgod.com, and we will schedule a call to get on a Zoom with you, because I want to talk to you. I want to tell you about all the cool things, much more than we can do on this podcast, and I want to hear your input. That's one important thing, is I'm looking for input from everybody, how we can do things better. And so reach out to us.
And you got 4 months to get ready.
Plenty of time.
So commit now, and you got 4 months to get ready.
Sure.
That's plenty of time.
For sure.
We'll leave you with this motivational thought of the week. It comes from Donald Baraglio and Michael Dove, kind of running advocates. They said, "The benefits and opportunities of running are available to anyone. You don't have to be born a natural athlete, and you don't have to be uniquely gifted. A life-shaping experience is there for the taking, waiting right outside your door."
I'm really interested to learn how that's attributed to both of them, because one of them said
It's a book.
Oh, so you don't really know who wrote it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and all this says is you just got to go out there and do it.
Sure.
I mean, there's this great feeling. There's this great thing just waiting for you. And all you got to do is reach out there and grab it.
That's right.
And you can do that too. It's free. Free 90 free. So get that. All right. Well, we're so glad you joined us. Hey, listen, share this podcast. Make sure that you're getting other people involved. We want a lot of people to hear about Jesus, and this gives them an opportunity to hear about running, which is great, but it also gives them a chance to hear about Jesus and hear some cool stories. I mean, Jerry Snider's just a lot of fun to listen to, right? So share this podcast. And until next week, may God bless every step of every run and or walk. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.